Do guns kill people or do people kill people? This question has sparked debates and divided opinions for decades. Today we're going to delve into this deeply rooted controversy, shedding light on both sides of the argument. Our aim is to present a balanced and fair exploration, without bias, allowing you to form your own informed opinion. From the assertion that guns are the culprits, to the belief that people are to blame, we'll scrutinize every angle. So let's delve deeper into this complex issue. On one side of the debate, we have those who argue that guns, in and of themselves, are the problem. This perspective is fueled by the harrowing statistics of gun-related violence and accidents that we see on a regular basis. Every year, tens of thousands of lives are lost to gun violence in America alone. These figures aren't just numbers on a page, but they represent real people. Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, friends, and neighbors. Their lives are abruptly ended, leaving a void that can never be filled, and a wound that may never heal. The easy accessibility of guns, particularly in the United States, is a major concern for this side of the debate. It's not uncommon for individuals to own multiple firearms, and in many states, obtaining a gun can be as simple as walking into a store and making a purchase. Some argue that this ease of access contributes to the high rates of gun violence and accidents. This group also points out the lack of strict gun control laws in many regions. While certain areas have stringent regulations regarding who can own a gun and how they can be used, others have much looser rules. This disparity can lead to situations where guns fall into the wrong hands with deadly consequences. They argue that if we had stricter gun control laws, such as comprehensive background checks, mandatory waiting periods, and restrictions on certain types of firearms, we might see a decrease in these tragic incidents. That's not to say that these measures would completely eliminate gun violence, but they could potentially make a significant dent in the numbers. This group is not necessarily advocating for a complete ban on guns. Instead, they are calling for more thoughtful, effective ways to regulate firearm ownership and use. They believe that with the right policies in place, it's possible to respect the rights of lawful gun owners while also protecting the broader community from the dangers of gun violence. This group believes that stricter gun control laws could be the answer to reducing gun-related deaths. In the end, they're looking for a balance, a way to preserve freedom while ensuring safety for all. On the other side, we have those who argue that guns are merely tools, and it's the people using them who are the real problem. Let's delve into this perspective. One of the main points raised by this group is the role of mental health in gun-related incidents. They argue that a gun, like a knife or a car, is a neutral object. It does not act on its own. It is the person wielding the gun who directs its use, for good or ill. If that person is dealing with unaddressed mental health issues, the likelihood of them using a gun in a harmful way can increase significantly. This side also emphasizes the importance of personal responsibility. They argue that if an individual chooses to own a gun, they must also choose to handle it responsibly. This means learning about gun safety, storing firearms securely, and understanding the potential consequences of their actions. They believe that irresponsible gun owners, not guns themselves, are a major factor in gun-related accidents and injuries. Furthermore, they stress the role of criminal intent. They point out that while most gun owners are law-abiding citizens, there are those who obtain guns with the express purpose of causing harm. These individuals, they argue, would find other ways to inflict damage even if guns were not available. Education about gun safety is another significant point for this group. They believe that many gun-related accidents could be prevented if people were better educated about how to handle and store firearms safely. This education, they argue, should start at a young age and continue throughout a person's life, just like education about driving safely or avoiding drugs and alcohol. Finally, this group firmly believes that focusing on the people, not the guns, could be the key to reducing gun-related deaths. They argue that addressing mental health issues, promoting personal responsibility, cracking down on illegal gun sales, and improving education about gun safety could all help to reduce the number of people killed by guns each year. This group believes that focusing on the people, not the guns, could be the key to reducing gun-related deaths. Now let's talk about the laws we currently have in place regarding gun control. The landscape of gun control laws is a complex one, varying greatly from state to state and country to country. In general terms, these laws aim to regulate the sale, possession, and use of firearms and ammunition. Some common types of gun control laws include background checks, waiting periods, and restrictions on certain types of guns. Let's dive a bit deeper. Background checks, for instance, are designed to prevent firearms from landing in the hands of those who may pose a risk to society, such as convicted felons, individuals with restraining orders, or those with a history of serious mental illness. Waiting periods, on the other hand, are intended to provide a cooling-off period to potentially prevent impulsive acts of violence. Then, we have laws restricting the sale and possession of certain types of firearms, such as automatic weapons or high-capacity magazines. These laws are meant to limit the potential damage that a single individual can inflict. Now, how effective are these laws? Well, that's a hotly debated question. Some studies suggest that stricter gun laws can lead to fewer gun deaths, while others argue that these laws only hinder law-abiding citizens and do little to deter criminals. And what about enforcement? Well, this is where things get tricky. Enforcing these laws can be a tall order. For one, the sheer volume of guns already in circulation makes it difficult to control who has them. Then, there's the issue of illegal gun sales, which often fly under the radar of law enforcement. Moreover, there's the challenge of balancing individual rights with public safety. The right to bear arms is deeply ingrained in many cultures, and any attempts to limit this right can face staunch opposition. While some argue that these laws are sufficient, others believe they are not strict enough. This debate continues to rage on, with no clear consensus in sight. The question remains, do we need more laws, or is it a matter of enforcing the ones we already have? What about the laws we need? What changes, if any, should be made to our current gun control laws? Let's dive into this a bit. The discussion surrounding changes to gun control laws is as diverse as it is complex. There are proponents who argue for stricter regulations, suggesting that this could potentially reduce the number of firearms-related incidents. They propose laws that would require comprehensive background checks for all gun buyers, a ban on high-capacity magazines, and a prohibition on certain types of semi-automatic weapons. On the flip side, there are those who believe that these proposed laws may infringe on the rights of responsible gun owners. They argue that stricter laws won't necessarily deter those with criminal intent and may only hinder law-abiding citizens. So, what are the potential effects of these proposed changes? Stricter gun control laws could potentially reduce the number of firearms in circulation, which some argue would lead to a decrease in gun violence. However, critics point out that criminals often obtain guns illegally. Thus, these laws may not have their intended effect. The benefits of stricter laws are clear to some. They argue that with fewer guns available, there would be fewer opportunities for deadly weapons to fall into the wrong hands. The possible reduction in gun violence could lead to safer communities. However, the drawbacks must also be considered. For one, implementing these laws could be a logistical nightmare. And let's not forget about the potential infringement on individual rights. There's a delicate balance between ensuring public safety and protecting personal liberties. It's also worth noting that laws alone are not the answer. There needs to be a multi-dimensional approach that includes mental health support, community outreach programs, and education about responsible gun ownership. The debate over what changes should be made is just as heated as the original question. Whether we lean towards more stringent laws or enforcing the ones we already have, it's clear that a comprehensive, balanced approach is necessary. The goal, after all, is a safer society for all. So, do guns kill people or do people kill people? The answer isn't as straightforward as it might seem. As we've navigated through this complex issue, we've discovered that the narrative surrounding firearms isn't merely black or white. On one hand, we've seen how guns can indeed cause harm and devastation, leading some to argue that more stringent gun control is necessary. On the flip side, we've also delved into the perspective that people, not guns, are the root cause of violence. The proponents of this viewpoint advocate for enforcing the existing laws more effectively, rather than creating new ones. We've further explored the nature of the laws we currently have in place, their effectiveness, and their shortcomings. We've seen how these laws attempt to strike a balance between individual rights and collective security, a task that is as challenging as it sounds. And then we've pondered on the laws we might need. Here we've speculated on potential legislation that could help us navigate this issue more effectively, always keeping in mind the importance of preserving individual freedoms and public safety. So, where does this leave us? It's clear that the issue of guns and violence is multifaceted and complex. It's a discussion that requires ongoing research, conversation, and thoughtful legislation. While we may not have a definitive answer, one thing is clear: this debate is far from over.